Hey guys, what is up? Sorry for doing it on Zoom first. I forgot I was doing it on a different platform. Anyway, guys, so today I'm going to be going over how I make $100 to $200 every single day. And I'm going to be showing you guys everything on a whiteboard today. So I got a whiteboard here, and I'm going to be showing you guys the exact process on how pretty much everything works. I'm going to open up my phone here, make sure I can see your guys' questions as they come through. If you guys can hear me loud and clear, please type live in the comments below. I know the email just went out, so we'll be having some people join here in a second. I do want to kind of go over some wins. Does anybody have any wins that they want to share? If so, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'd love to see some wins that you guys are having. Just so you guys know, I got a win a little bit earlier. I was able to buy this MacBook, 2020 MacBook Air, M1 edition for $320. So it was a good little buy. It's going to sell for, I appraised it at about $550-ish. So it was good, right? It was a good amount. And I should make some good money off of it. What's up, John? Good to see you, bro. All right, guys. So, and then I do want to share a couple of my student wins. Somebody said MacBooks are amazing. Yeah, they sure are. MacBooks are great money. Fantastic money, actually. Sometimes better than phones. A lot of times better than phones. But anyway, I got that off of a MacBook ad specifically that I was running. Okay, so I do want to go over a couple of wins that we are having inside of the Recelerator program. And then I want to ask you guys about your wins as well. So if you guys have any wins, drop them in the chat. I want to see them. I want to see some wins. It doesn't look like I can get to my Slack channel. It's all right. It's whatever. We've been doing a lot of Oculus Quest lately. We've been doing a lot of MacBooks. We've been doing a lot of just different types of stuff here recently. And we've just been crushing it. Like, we're actually buying a whole lot more than phones. So I'm enjoying the fact that we're buying a whole lot more than phones. And for all of you guys who are just joining, feel free to say hi, say live. What's up, Xavier, Eddie? John's in here. We got a couple more people joining in. Fantastic. Glad to have you guys on. So, guys, today I'm not going to be sharing my screen a whole lot. I'm going to be going over mostly the overall process that I use to buy, MacBooks just like this, right? And phones and other things every single day, just simply by going to Starbucks and meeting up with people. Because as many of you guys know, that's what I do, right? So let's pop into it. So I'm just going to share my whiteboard here. I went ahead and wrote everything out for you guys just to make life pretty easy. So let's see. Cool. You guys can see it. Fantastic. There we go. Fantastic. All right. So the way that pretty much this entire thing works, guys, is just like this. This is the entire process broken down on how I meet people at Starbucks literally every single day at 12 and 5 and, whatever other times I usually meet people. So the very first thing that it starts with here, guys, is an I buy ad, okay? Now, the I buy ad, I've shown you guys many, many times what those look like. But essentially, it's an ad that says, I buy phones, I buy MacBooks, I buy smartwatches, I buy cameras, I buy this, I buy that, right? Like, it just says what we buy, right? That's one of the best ads to run. I had a guy hit me up yesterday. He was like, Chris, you're right. The crappy ads actually work better than the ones that, I tried, right? A lot of people, myself included. So let me actually kind of back up here. So these I buy ads, let me share with you guys kind of how I got into those and how I, figured out that crappy ads actually work. So I started out kind of like everybody else. And I was like, I want my brand to be like super professional. I want this, I want that. And over time, what I found was that the types of like professional ads that are run don't actually work very well with people. Okay. Like whenever the best ad that I ever created was whenever I had a Note 9 and it had the little pen, right? And I went to the Facebook story editor and I took just a photo of a phone that I had, an iPhone 7. And I literally drew on it in yellow, like coloring. And I just said, I buy phones. That's all it said. It was the crappiest handwriting ever, but it was one of my best performing ads. I don't use it anymore because it's an iPhone 7, right? I don't want people thinking that that's mostly what I buy, right? So if you guys can hear me loud and clear, if you guys have used ads like that before, let me know, right? Somebody says, yeah, simple, get to the point. Yeah. So plain and simple, get to the point ads. That's exactly what these ads are, the little I buy ads, right? All right. And then the next thing that happens here is from these I buy ads, we get leads, okay? Which is somebody like looking to sell an iPhone, looking to sell a MacBook, looking to sell a camera, looking to sell blah, 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 right? This works very similar for like diabetic test strips and things like that. So this is, where we get the lead, right? And then we start talking to them. We ask them questions, and which I'll be getting to down here. But whenever I first started getting leads, guys, I was terrified. I didn't know how to actually do this thing. And I'm sure you're wondering, you probably thought I have some great negotiation skills. And here in a minute, I'll tell you why I didn't and how that was one of the greatest things that could have ever happened to me, is not having any formal negotiation skills whatsoever. Because the way that I negotiate is it's stupid, but it works. It works really well, actually. Okay, so we get leads in, right? I buy ads to leads and then to appraisals. So in the beginning, whenever I first started doing this, I had no idea how to appraise anything correctly. Nothing, okay? I didn't know what appraisal was. I didn't know how to make an offer. I didn't know how to do these things. I'm sure a lot of you guys thinking, or watching, are thinking this exact same thing. I don't know how to value something. Well, let me show you guys how it's actually pretty easy, okay? So as you guys can see here, we got 105, we got 110, 100, right? The average of all three of those numbers is 105, okay? So basically what we do is we go to online marketplaces very similar to eBay. eBay is actually the one that I use to appraise this MacBook right here that I bought earlier today, okay? I found 3 prices for it, and I was like, okay, I can offer $320 for it and I'll still make a profit, right? So we go to places like eBay and Swappa and Direct Buyers, right? And we find, comparables. So on eBay, we specifically find 3 comparables. So as you can see here, we find the average, and then we base our offer off of that average, okay? So and that average is 105. So what I would offer for this now, knowing, is I would offer about 40 to 50% of its value, right? So 105, I'd probably offer around 40 to 50 bucks, so that I'd make, maybe even 30 as a low ball, right? So appraising and offer making isn't as hard as you might think. All it takes is a little bit of reps. And that's one thing that I found is I just have to make a good amount of offers to understand how it works, okay? And that's what I did. So the next part here, guys, we go down to the next part here, which is negotiation. So I told you guys earlier that my negotiation strategies were pretty much garbage. So, and they are. So let me show you guys. I'm going to sit down here now that I'm closer and everything. All right. So, all right. Negotiation. So in the beginning, was terrible in negotiation. Horrible. Okay. I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking, Chris has always been a good negotiator. Couldn't be further from the truth. Okay. I was not a good negotiator. Was not at all. All right. So what I was doing in the beginning was I didn't realize would become my bullet negotiation method in the future. Okay. All I knew was that people wanted a price for their device. That's all I knew. Okay. So, but before I started doing that, I would just ask a whole lot of questions, right? Like in the beginning, I would just ask what device is it? How many gigabytes does it have? What color is it? Blah, 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 right? I'd literally fire off all of the questions right away. And then after I found out that people really just wanted a price, all I started doing was asking for the device and what's wrong with it. Like, that's all I did. Okay. And I know that sounds dumb, because why wouldn't I want more information? Well, because it allows me to actually negotiate better. Now, whenever I have less information, I usually make more money. Okay. So, what do I mean by that? So, let's say, so earlier I made an offer on an iPhone 11, right? Now, I didn't know if that was an 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max. I didn't know. I just made an offer based on the original iPhone 11. That's it. Okay. I offered $40 and she accepted. Okay. Now, earlier I bought it and it was actually an 11 Pro, which isn't that much, that big of a difference. But I made more money because of that. And she was happy with the money that she got and things like that. Right. I actually gave her a little bit more because she came and, I paid some gas for her. But we want to wait before we ask all of the questions up front. Now, I used to use a chat bot to ask all questions up front. I no longer do that. I don't recommend my students do it. I don't do that, okay, because it siphons away profit from what I could be making, okay? So what I do now is my bullet negotiation method. I start off with 2 questions. What device is it? What's wrong with it? And then I make an offer. That's it. Now, if they don't like that offer, which is usually my anchor offer, right, I will then ask, hey, what carrier is it with? What company? And they'll be like, oh, well, and if they say if like it's unlocked, okay, cool. Now I can go up in price, right? And then like, or if they say something like it's paid off, I can go up in price based on that. And then the last question I usually ask is like, hey, what's the battery health percentage, right? So, and then you make the offer. Like, you want to just keep making the offer as you go up, okay? So that's negotiation. That's kind of the gist of my bullet negotiation. You don't have to be an amazing negotiator to close deals. You just don't, okay? I wasn't in the beginning. I didn't even know what I was doing when I started this thing out, okay? So the next thing here, guys, is where you actually buy the item at the Starbucks or the McDonald's or wherever you just want to meet people, the police station. I don't really care where you meet people, okay? By the way, is the whiteboard cool? Do you guys like it? Let me know in the comments. I might do more of them. Not totally sure, but this is actually like the full layout of how everything works inside of my Recelerator program for my entire system. It's just the framework. Okay, so let me move on here. So buy the item at Starbucks, right? So I'll leave that here. You guys can see me. So when we get there, we have to actually buy the item, right? So what are the questions that we ask when we buy the item? Well, number one, we want to make sure it's not iCloud locked or Google locked or anything like that, right? Then we want to look at the screen, make sure it's not cracked, and if it is cracked, we want to make sure it's not like cracked on the back or something like that. Then we want to check the volume buttons, make sure they actually work. Sometimes they actually don't, believe it or not. Sometimes the volume buttons don't actually work. Face ID. So on the newer phones, you want to check the Face ID. Just like on this MacBook, I checked the fingerprint, right? Like, it's a newer MacBook. I wanted to check, make sure the fingerprint worked, make sure the camera works, that stuff, right? Face ID, then check the IMEI, and then obviously check the sound. And then there's a couple other miscellaneous things. And I also do a bill of sale for this as well. Any item that I usually buy that could have some sort of data or information on it, I like to do a bill of sale. That's just what I do, right? It's just my biggest thing. And then the last part of all of this is we buy it. What I like to do here at the Starbucks is I actually like to take the photos at Starbucks. All right. And then I sell it on either eBay, Swappa, Direct Buyer, Mercari, or locally. Okay. Now, you might be asking yourself, but Chris, I don't have any of these, or I've never sold anything online before, or I, don't know what a direct buyer is. I don't know how to find a direct buyer. That's totally cool. Like, I didn't know any of that stuff in the beginning either. Right. So you don't have to know all of these things right away. Okay. It's not necessary for you to understand all of it as soon as you start. You just have to start. That's really what it is. Most people in life, they just never start. So, and as you guys go through this, you might you might encounter some difficulties and some failures, right? But that's all part of the journey. Like, failure is the only way to success. It's the only way. I know that throughout my life and many other people that I work with. So 7 a month, man, is my ebook at this point. Yeah, if you get my ebook, that pretty much says everything in it, man. For this anyway. So yeah, I mean, guys, this is the whole system. This is the entire thing. It's pretty simple. I know it looks overwhelming at first, but it's really not. And just to recap everything, the way everything works is we put out I buy ads on Facebook, Instagram, Google, right? And if you don't know how to do ads in the beginning, that's okay. I didn't know how to do ads in the beginning, but if you're willing to learn, great. Then you'll learn how to do it. And then we get messages, and I didn't know how to take messages in the beginning either. But over time, I got enough reps in. Like you go to the gym, build muscle, right? You build the muscle of talking to people. Okay. The next one here is appraisals. And like I said, I didn't know how to appraise anything in the beginning either, but I got better at it. Over time, I just got better at it. So, over time, just get better at things. The more time you put into them. Negotiation, that's another thing that, like I said, I wasn't the best at, but it ended up being a blessing for me, right? Because simplicity is actually just better, right? Buy them at Starbucks. Now, guys, I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning buying things simply because I didn't know how to check things correctly. But over time, I learned how to do it, right? I learned how to check iCloud, how to check Google. Guys, just so you guys know, in the beginning, I had no idea how to like operate an iPhone. I didn't know how to do that. That's crazy, right? Guys, Chris Schroeder did not know how to operate an iPhone in the beginning. Didn't know how to do it. That's probably surprising a couple of you, but it's true. I grew up with an Android phone, with a Cricket phone. So I didn't know how to do it. So when you're checking things, right? When you're checking the iCloud and the Google accounts, you're not going to know this stuff at first, okay? But you'll learn, right? The screens, you'll learn like what an LCD is and things like that. You'll learn the volume buttons and making sure they work, and the Face ID and the IMEI numbers and how to check that, right? And then the sound and all of the other miscellaneous stuff that comes along with it on top of that, right? I can see I got some people commenting. So if you guys want to answer questions, type your questions out, feel free to do so. And then, obviously in the beginning, let me tell you guys a story, quick story time. So in the beginning, whenever I first started this 7 years ago, if I can get this to stay. In the beginning, whenever I first started this 7 years ago, I was terrified to sell anything on eBay. And here's the reason why. I was 22 years old, and I had never shipped anything in my life. Never shipped anything. Never put a label on anything. Never. So many of you guys are actually starting out with an advantage than I did, right? So in the beginning, I didn't know how to do any of that. So if you guys know how to do that now, great. You're actually starting out at a better place than I did, right? If you have an eBay account, great. You're starting out further along the path than I did. I didn't know how to do that, okay? So, and if you don't know how to use Swap or, find a direct buyer, that's okay. Most direct buyers find you anyway. If you got phones, they usually find you. Mercari is just a backup for eBay, essentially, at this point. And then local, if you want to sell local, you can just use the same process. Same thing applies. Like, it just takes a little bit longer to sell usually. So, and you pay the time tax when you sell locally. So this is, for you guys, take a screenshot. Go ahead and take it. Let me get the whole thing here for you guys. All right. Take a screenshot right now on your phone. If you're watching on your phone, take a screenshot. This is the whole process. This is how everything works. Okay. So I'm going to set this right here. We're done with that. Hope you guys like the whiteboard. Maybe I'll do more of it. So I'll answer a few Q&As and things like that. Let's see here. Got a couple of Qs. All right, and if you guys want all of this like direct information, like I actually have a great ebook that that's mostly made for people who are just starting out, right? I'll drop that in the comments for you guys. If you're just starting out, this is the best place to start. There we go. And then I'll start answering some questions. And then let's see. So we got a couple of questions coming in. I gotta get back in this game. How much money do you need to start out with MacBooks? The same amount you use to start out with phones. Let's see. What's up, Aaron? I don't know if Aaron's actually watching. Let's see here. Is there direct buyers for other electronics besides phones, or are the online platforms like eBay, Mercari, etc., the only way to flip them? Yeah, so that usually direct buyers are mostly for phones, which is totally fine. A lot of us need a quick turnaround because of low upfront money. I don't have a few weeks to get my money back. Yeah, so like if you only deal with direct buyers, I mean, you're only limited to phones, unfortunately. Now, eBay pays me within 1 to 2 days of selling something on there, but I've also been on the platform. You have to kind of have your tenure on the platform, right? Last items you bought and sold. So the items that sold today, we sold three phones today. 3 phones today and an Oculus Quest controller. That's what we sold today. I feel like I sold something else. Not totally sure though. But was this helpful for everybody? Was this nice? Did you guys enjoy it? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Everybody like the whiteboard? Give you guys some visuals. Fantastic. Cool. All right. So for those of you guys that are watching the replay, if you guys are interested in actually looking to create like a buyback company, like we run, like a lot of my students now run, and always going to 3, 4, 5,000 plus profit per month, which is what we help people do with more than phones. I do want to point that out. We don't just do phones. I've gotten to the point where phones are very limiting at this point. And we actually make a lot more profit on things like game consoles and MacBooks and things like that. We've been crushing these, right? Like these things, I'm going to make $150 in profit off of this alone today. Okay. So, yeah, like that's crazy, right? Now phones are still a big staple of my business, but for a lot of my students, some of them only flip game consoles. Some of them only flip VR systems. That's insane. Like a lot of people, if you guys go back a couple of years, this was all phones, right? But what we found is actually game consoles, VR systems, and like cameras and stuff like that, MacBooks, untapped marketplaces. And this is free game, just so you guys know. If you guys go out there and you start marketing for these specific things, I guarantee you can match your phones in less than a couple of months easily. Okay. We make solid amounts off of Oculus Quest, the other VR systems, game consoles. Nintendo Switches have actually been dominating for us recently. So a lot of cool stuff. What kind of cameras? Mostly DSLR cameras, Canon, Nikon, and then like Fujifilm sometimes. Sometimes they have some good ones. But if you guys are looking to like really take this and move it to a business, let me know. Here's how you do that. So let me grab my calendar link here for you guys. Do you have appraisal checklist for other items? I do in my program. It's actually directly, it's in the Recelerator program. Let me grab my calendar link here. So let me pull something up for you guys here. So we had a guy join today who I built out an entire thing for him, like an entire buyback plan. So I'm going to drop a link for you guys to book a call directly with me. Okay. And if you don't want to book the link, you can just say book in the comments and I can get to you. But let me pull up my little thing here. Because I did for the guy who joined today, we did an entire plan for him. So if you want an entire buyback plan built out for you specifically with your name and everything, with all your details, then you're going to want to click the link that I'm going to drop after I show this. So let me pull it up. Here we go. Terrible at pulling things up on time, but it is what it is. All right. So this is Nicholas. Let me make sure this is sharing on my screen for everybody. Okay. So if you guys want an entire buyback plan actually built out for you before like joining my program, then I'm going to recommend that you book a call directly with me. I'm going to drop the link here in a minute for you guys to do so. Nicholas actually joined us today, and we went over his current circumstances, all the details. He just started in reselling. He's not making a whole lot. He just bought an iPad. He's been buying iPhones mostly. He's got about $1,200 in buying power, and he wants to do $5,000 in profit within 6 months, right? I did a whole demographic sweep of his area, and I told him the population side within a 5-mile radius. He's up in New York-ish area. Based on past data, his average cost per message on Facebook will be about $1 to $4 a lead, and then on Google it'll be about $4 to $5 a lead, and this is his exact area. And then we built out a plan from month 1 to 6. And this is customized for him. Customized. All right. So his first goal for month 1 is $1,500 in profit. Month 2 is $2,500. Month 3 is $3,500. And I show him exactly how to do this on top of how many items he has to buy to do so. Okay. So it is to the T. Like if he follows this, he will hit his goals. And I do want to point out, these numbers are based on like the lowest they could be. This is based on $80 profits, $80 profit margins. Okay. So, and then on top of that, he also gets an accountability sheet with the program. So this is his right here. It does everything. He tracks his progress here, tracks his ad spend, his conversations, closed leads, follow-ups, meetups. And then it'll actually even, track his closing ratio, his lead to meetup ratio, sales per lead, profit per lead, cost per lead, return on ad spend. So if this is something you are looking for, you do have to apply. I do not take everybody. So I'm going to drop a link here in a second for you guys that are serious to help you guys win. So let me grab this. And this is what we've been doing with everybody. This is what I've kind of, that's why I haven't really been going live. I've been building all of this in the background. Where is my thing? There we go. Here we go. Copy. Oh, wait, I can do this from my phone. All right, I'm going to drop this link here in a second, guys. For those of you who are serious about working directly with me, with my head game console coach and all of that, then use this link to book. Once you book, I will build out, and based on the questions that you answer, I will build out an entire thing for you, just like you saw there. If you're qualified, you have to be qualified. Okay. So, and I'll let you know if you're qualified or not, and then we'll go from there. So, anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the whiteboard. I'm going to put it up one more time and allow everybody to just take a big old screenshot on how to do this, right? So here we go. Here is the whiteboard one more time. Let me get it for you guys. Go ahead and screenshot that baby. And there we go. Go ahead and screenshot it. And that's your plan. That's your plan on how to do this. So, and if you want help in doing it less than 6 months, then hire me and my team, and we'll help you crush it out in less than 6 months. So Anyway, guys, peace out. I'm done today. It's been a long day. So, later.